You all asked for more dark web stories, so I'm back with 5 more. With that said, whether you're sitting around a campfire, jogging in the woods, on the night shift, or even laying in bed, let my voice soothe your nightmares. The dark web ruined my life. I only went on because I knew my uncle used to. He's really good with computers, so I guess I got my skill with technology from him. I'm not gonna say how I got on there because I don't want to make it easier for others to make the same mistake I did. Anyways, after a little while of looking around, I found a link titled Hypnotizing Scenery. I don't know what compelled me to click on it. I hadn't planned to click on anything at all. I just wanted to look around a bit to soothe my curiosity, I suppose. When I clicked on it, well, it was weird. At first, it was a bunch of normal scenery. Pictures of mountains, old castles, and oceans. Normal stuff. Then, the pictures started changing faster and faster. I couldn't even really make out what the pictures were of anymore. I saw a lot of red, like maybe blood, on clothes, maybe a mattress? I'm not sure, but it also looked like there were words over the pictures. I couldn't read what they said in time, or even before it switched pictures again. Suddenly, it ended with a blank screen with white text that read, "Good luck." I feel I should mention that this was all about 30 seconds. After it ended, I shut everything down and got into bed. The next morning, when I woke up, I had this horrible migraine. It just wouldn't go away. When I went to school, everyone seemed so loud and annoying. This one kid, Anthony in particular, was driving me insane. He kept poking me with his pencil as he did every day. I'd tell him to stop and he would just laugh. As he did this, I kept thinking about how great it would feel to just rip his arm out of its socket. Maybe poke him with a pencil in the throat. See how he likes it. I had decided, the next time he poked me, I would kill him. 1, 2, 3, 4. Poke. I snapped my head around, got up, ripped the pencil from his hand so hard he fell out of his chair. I got on top of him and held the pencil to his throat, pressing harder and harder. He was grasping at my arms and trying to get me off of him, but I felt stronger than ever. He couldn't manage to push me off as a trickle of blood began to run down the side of his neck. That's when the principal, the vice principal, and 3 janitors managed to pull me off. Suddenly, I heard all the screaming and commotion. All 35 students crowded against the wall in the corner with the teacher gasping for air, crying and backing up against her desk. My parents came and got me 20 minutes later. The cops were never called, and I guess the kids' parents decided not to call them and press charges. I'm not sure why, though. I would've. I was expelled from school, however, and my parents were pretty angry. I don't know what came over me, but as I had the pencil against his throat, all I could think about was how great I felt. Invincible, free, powerful. Now, I just felt like the same 16-year-old, 5'3" 120 pounds small girl I was the day before, and my migraine was back. Great. I remembered that it had started to fade away as I tackled Anthony. I tried to get to sleep, but all I could think about was how he got away. I wanted him dead, bloody on the ground and grasping for breath. I wanted to kill him. I wanted to be the last thing he saw before he died. I couldn't believe I was thinking this way. I've never been a violent person, but now that I was thinking about it, I didn't care who it was. I just wanted to kill someone. Not just kill them, but torture them. I decided to get back to that page to see if I could find some answers. It was that link that did this to me. Turned me into some kind of monster. There it was, hypnotizing scenery. This time, when I clicked on it though, it was a list. A set of rules. Number 1, always finish the kill. If you don't, the migraine will worsen quickly and you'll be dead within 4 months. Number 2, take it slow. Don't finish it off too soon or the migraine will return faster. Number 3, don't be stupid, don't get caught. Number 4, leave the mark, something for them to remember me. A small J carved into their forehead. Number 5, you are my creation. I made you to continue my legacy. Don't fight it. It's not worth it. I'm now 26 years old, and I've killed a countless number of people. Anthony was my first official kill. Only 3 months after the incident, when I couldn't handle this migraine anymore, I didn't think that I'm me anymore. My creator will probably see this and might end me, but I wanted to write this as a warning before the monster takes over again. Don't go on the dark web. It's not worth it. This story goes way back to 2006, but I remember it like it was yesterday. When I was 16, I had a really good friend, a year younger, who was deep into coding. I met him years earlier in a computer club in middle school, and he had been integral in me becoming tech literate over time. This guy knew 3 coding languages by heart in his 7th grade. Anyways, he ended up telling me about Tor, and all that while we were chatting with some friends in IRC after school. Some of the older guys had some really interesting stories, and I, of course, dug really deep into them. It didn't take long for me to download Tor and start looking up .onion links. My first couple of weeks were spent clicking around, just trying to go deeper and find different things. I was saving all the good links I could find in a note card. I found various things like a dark web search engine, something similar to a hidden wiki, a few conspiracy sites, the usual drug stuff, porn I wanted to be nowhere near, and even a hitman forum. The thing that made me uninstall Tor came about 2.5 weeks into using it, and almost religiously after school. I had stumbled on a forum, probably something along the lines of think.evil forums, or some crap. It was behind a wall of about 4 or 5 different forums, linking deeper and deeper. All of the banter was about really dark topics: torture, long-term abuse tactics, cannibalism, you name it. As with anything on the dark web, most of the posts were either weeks or months old. There were a few sub-forums that were more active than others. However, when looking at the main page and seeing which post had the most recent, there was something posted within the last hour. It was a link. Red Room going live soon. Onion jargon here. .onion. At this point, I was hit with a wave of emotion, like none I had ever felt before. I was washed over with a wave of ice, frozen in my seat. There was a looming terror of what it could mean. I had only heard a couple things about red rooms before coming upon this. Only the most potent of teenage curiosity fueled my fingers to copy and paste the link. What I saw is exactly what has been described by other accounts that have been posted. As such, bringing up the more gory, no sleep bit is a bit hard for me to think about, let alone write. Details will be omitted. It was a live webcam chat room. Inside, what looked like to be an abandoned house, was a person sitting on a chair sobbing with a pillowcase covering their body, and someone else moving around stuff. The person moving around was the admin of the chat session, and he came closer to the camera and uncovered the woman as she jumped in terror from the act alone. A woman with duct tape on her face, and a man with a black t-shirt over his head, or something similar. After welcoming people to the show, as the woman cried, he asked in type what the crowd wanted to see and how much they'd pay to see it. I just remember being sat there in sheer terror, half trying to figure out how to help this lady, and half completely frozen stiff. The details are a bit blurry, so even if I wanted to add them, it's difficult to do. However, someone offered $500 for something along the lines of beating the woman with a baseball bat. And to be completely honest, remembering it this much is about to bring me to tears again. The screams still haunt me. The man who paid $500 for that asked the admin to end her with a knife immediately. Someone had then asked me why I wasn't telling, and IIRC. I pulled the plug on my computer and called my friend. I had told him what happened, and all he said was, "You've probably just been reading too many stories and fell asleep at the computer and had a nightmare." Because all of the stories that float around about the dark web, no one ever believes this story. Yet, it happened. Every time it comes back in my mind, I pray that it was just a snuff film with a bad budget. But the screams and blood were too real for that. This happened a few years ago. I haven't touched any technology after what happened until now. So, I've been using technology since I was a kid. At 12, I learned how to write scripts and programs to hack into systems. And ever since, I was hooked. Fast forward. I'm in my second year university. I'm now quite good at hacking, albeit somewhat cocky. Throughout high school, I'd made a lot of money hacking. People would come to me normally to recover their hacked social media accounts, or to hack into their boyfriend's phone to read their text messages. I was known as the guy to go to if you wanted something hacked. Even my school occasionally came to me for help if some script kiddie shut down the school's website with low-orbit ion cannon. Like I said, I made a lot of money doing this through high school. Halfway through my second year of university, I started getting bored of this. The money was good, but there was no thrill. One of my friends told me about this cool thing called the dark web. I had heard of the dark web before, but it never seemed that interesting. My friend told me how it was full of drugstores, weapon dealers, hackers for hire, and a bunch of fucked up animal and CP. As a hacker and a stoner, the dark web seemed right up my alley. When I got home that day, I fired up my computer and did some quick Googling. With my vast knowledge of technology, it didn't take long to get set up with Tor and Tails installed on my computer. I sped through the hidden wiki, finding most of the websites boring or dead. I texted my friend asking if he had any interesting link directories. He replied, "Here are a few ones I use." He sent me about 5 links to directories. I decided to click on the second one and see what I could find. I scrolled through the directory for a few minutes. He was right about how interesting the dark web was. I couldn't figure out where to start, so I clicked on a chat room. The website looked old and primitive, but surprisingly, there was one person online. I started talking to him. He seemed kinda shady, but it was better than scrolling through a bunch of dead websites. He said he'd been on the dark web for a while. Finally, finding someone with a vast knowledge of what's on the dark web, I asked him if he had any interesting links. He sent me a link, then immediately left the website. I had no idea what was hidden behind the link. Looking back on it, oh God, I wish I hadn't have clicked it. At the time, my own curiosity overwhelmed me, and I clicked the link without giving it a second thought. After it finally loaded, due to Tor's notoriously slow loading time, I was presented with a pop-up box. It said in red text,
"If you don't know what's next, you're probably in the wrong place."
There were two buttons, continue and leave. I instantly clicked continue. The biggest mistake of my life. It brought up a black screen page with a blood red title at the top of the screen, The Freak Show. In the middle of the screen, there was a chat box. A message popped out from someone titled Admin. He said hello. I said, "Hello, interesting website you've got here." He replied,
"Thank you. Are you here to view the show?"
I thought to myself, what show? Out of curiosity, I replied with, yes. He said,
"Since you're a first-time viewer, it'll cost you $500 via Bitcoin in order to view the show. Future viewings are free."
From all the money I made hacking, I had enough to fuel my curiosity, so I went ahead and paid the $500. After paying him, I was surprised. I was given a zip file instead of a link. I had developed a custom-made antivirus that appeared to work well, so I risked downloading it. When I unzipped the folder, there were two files inside, an installer and a file named readme.txt. I started by opening the text file. It just said, "Do not send the installer to anyone, or else." I went ahead and closed the text file and opened the installer. It took about 15 minutes to install, which is strange for my computer. After installing, it opened up automatically. Across the screen it said,
"Hello, welcome to the Freak Show. We used a custom program for our streams instead of live streaming on Tor due to being so slow. We also need the extra security."
After about 10 seconds, the screen changed to a countdown with a chat room next to it. At this point, I was starting to feel whatever happened next would not be good. The timer displayed that there were 30 minutes until the stream started. I set my screen name to James Kent 157. Not my real name, but I needed an alias. I said, "Hi," in chat, but was ignored. I waited the 30 minutes, and after the timer hit 0, a video feed began. On the screen, there was a guy in a mask with 3 people side by side in front of him. He started speaking with a voice changer to mask his voice. He said,
"Welcome to the 26th stream of the Freak Show. We are happy to see our old viewers and a few new ones. We will randomly choose who gets to choose who to kill first and how to kill them."
At that point, I realized I was fucked. I was in too much shock to close the window. I watched as the feed turned into a bunch of names scrolling by, until it landed on someone named Gore725. I watched as he made his commands.
"First stab him in the kneecaps, then cut off his fingers. After that, gouge his eyeballs. When that's finished, drill into his stomach, and to finish him off, burn him with hot metal."
I watched as the sicko did all of this. I watched as the victim screamed in pain. After everything was done, he said,
Now for the next one.
After he said that, I snapped out of it and went to close the page. When I clicked on the X, it said, "Sorry, no leaving midstream." I was trapped. The wheel popped up again, but this time, it landed on me. I couldn't respond. Instead, I typed in the chat, "You sick fucks, why are you doing this?" I was met with all the people in the chat calling me things like pussy, dumbass, and other things. I then said, "I'm calling the police." I shouldn't have said that. The owner of the site said,
Call the police, and you'll be in next week's stream, Logan.
That made my heart freeze. He knew my real name. He then pasted my parents' names, my address, school, age, and IP in chat. I immediately went to the task manager to close Tor in the programs. As soon as the task manager opened, it said, "Not responding." The guy said,
Don't try that in chat.
I pulled the plug on my computer without a doubt. My screen went black. I ran to my parents' room and told them what happened and said we had to move. They believed me and called the police. Police took care of everything and put us under police protection. Within a few months, they found the website owner. He was a 32-year-old man who lived off a combination of welfare and the money he made from his red room. It was many years later before I finally started using technology again. The dark web is an abyss of terrible things. If you're smart, you'll stay on the surface web, but I can't control what you do. Hi, my name is Jacob. My life hadn't gone the way I'd expected it, or rather, my future hadn't been what I'd hoped. When I was in college, my whole life revolved around my school and my work. If I wasn't on the computer writing some program, I was in class or tutoring. If I wasn't doing any of those things, I was helping out at the help desk of our school. Either way, I had no life outside of class and work. Mainly because I had told myself that I would focus on the fun parts of life when I had a degree and a decent paying job. Right now, I needed to earn all of that. When my school finally ended, I was in a panic to get a decent job because I knew not soon after Uncle Sam would come calling for me to pay back all my student loans I'd taken out. Suffice it to say that I wasn't very picky and really just applied for anything that paid a decent amount of money. I didn't even care if it was related to my computer science major, just that it would pay the bills. I finally found a job with a small web development company, which seemed to be a big dream I was hoping for. It paid great, my coworkers were excellent, and my hours were flexible, and the work was fun enough. There was an itch in the back of my mind that I couldn't quite scratch though. Was this it? Was this the life I had given up my early 20s for? I got up in the morning and worked out. I'd get dressed and go to work. Then, for 8 or more hours, I would work on different code banks and polish up different websites before sloughing off back to my new apartment to eat, sleep, and repeat. I tried going out with my friends, going to bars and parties, taking walks, all the things you're supposed to do with a normal life, but none of it brought any excitement to me. I started taking inordinate risks when I was driving, caring less about how people perceived me when I talked with them, and ignoring friends and family. You have to understand some things about me to really know what I was going through. For the better part of life, I had been regarded as a pretty strange kid. I was interested in the more occult and obscure parts of life. Didn't really care much for rules, stealing from others, breaking into houses in my youth, and lying like second nature. As I entered my teenage years, I realized quickly that I couldn't get away with these things anymore if I wanted to get ahead, and decided to change a lot about myself. In essence, I learned to wear a mask and got so good at it that I seemingly forgot I'd been wearing it for all these years. I had even fooled myself. With the boredom and mediocrity of life after college settling in, my mask was starting to wear loose, and the creature from my youth was peeking out from behind it. I started frantically looking for things to satiate my growing need for thrill and excitement, and my numbness to social norms grew even more deafening. Working in the computer field, I had heard of and used Tor on many occasions. The browser used to access the deep web, but never been interested in anything it provided. At most, it masked your identity and sacrificed speed, but at its worst, it was where the dredge of society lurked, and for all my social ineptitude, I knew I wasn't anything like those people. On my way home from work one day, I was driving down the freeway as normal, but suddenly, a guy cut me off and dodged in front of me, almost causing me to crash. I slammed on my brakes and turned my steering wheel as hard as I could, causing me to run off the side of the road into a ditch. My brakes and wheels, no doubt, took some heavy damage, but in general, my car was okay. The whole experience made my heart beat like it was young again, and instead of being mad, I remember that almost it was exciting. I enjoyed the thrill of it. That's when it occurred to me that I may have a use for the deep web after all. Like I had said, it was where you could find all the dregs of society, and while I wasn't one, perhaps I needed someone who was willing to stoop to that level. When I got home, I downloaded Tor and started researching different anonymous forums where I might be able to score a little action. To the more experienced users of the dark web, I likely came off as a newbie going around poking his head into places that he knows nothing about. But I didn't care. All I really needed was just one person to be interested in guiding me through the gates of this underworld. I posted a little thread here and there and any open forum I could find, looking for an adventure and something that will get my heart pumping like I'm alive again. I provided a recently set up email and waited to see if I would get any replies. Many of my threads were taken down by moderators, and those that weren't found unsolicited spam, obvious virus links, or disgusting images sent to the email I had provided. After a few days of no success, I learned of a few chat rooms and I believed might be more helpful than my search. These would be live conversations, so I wouldn't have to wait for any replies, as they would hopefully be more welcoming to someone who didn't know a lot about this kind of thing. After posting my normal looking for adventure, most of the rooms booted me, either as a newbie or believing I was a cop. But in my very last one, I received a pop-up to talk with one of the chat members privately, which I was more than happy to do. There I was, at my desk, nothing lighting the room but my computer monitor. Sitting in the darkness, I chatted back and forth with this guy about my life and how I wanted something more interesting, risky, and fun. He said he'd met many people who'd stumbled onto this chat looking for the same, and that he always liked helping them out. We talked for days about different adventures he'd taken his past acquaintances on, but how each of them always wanted to return to their normal dull lives after a bit, which left him to continue his search for that one buddy who wouldn't leave. The whole time, this sounded incredibly sad and stalkerish, which, believe it or not, didn't frighten me away, but left me more interested. I'm not naive or stupid. I was talking with someone I'd met on a random dark web chat room. At the most harmless it was, some fat old guy sitting on the other end spinning me a web of lies. But at most, it really was someone dangerous, and I wanted to find out for myself. I wanted him to be dangerous, because therein lies the thrill, which was my vendetta from the beginning of this little adventure into the dark web. I got up the courage to ask him if he'd ever want to actually meet and go on one of his little trips, just to see what his reaction would be. And of course, he was more than happy to. I learned that he was only about 7 hours away from me, so I suggested we meet the next week, and that I didn't want to know any of the details. Just that I wanted to have a fun time for a few days. The days passed by quickly, and the night before I was planning on making the trip, I packed up all the things I thought I might need. Clothes and travel stuff, but also a few self-defense items, a flashlight, and several burner phones. Loading it all in my trunk, I started to get a rush then, and there of what I was able to do. I was meeting up with a complete stranger in the middle of the night, putting myself in danger. And I had no idea what the morning hours were going to be. As I drove down the dark highway road, my light beams in front of me, I felt as alive as ever. The dull drudgery of my job, the boring routine of my life, it all just slipped away. Night and the passing cars gave me a kind of quiet and peace to my racing mind. When I got to the town and my new friend's address, I really started to feel the excitement wash over me. I had given him the number of one of my burner phones, and he texted me, "Are you almost here?" I didn't reply as I knew I was, and pulling over would have just taken more time. I winded up a road near the edge of the town, but definitely removed from public and prying eyes until I seen a house a little ways in the distance. Pulling into the driveway, the reality of what I was doing started to hit me, and more than excited, I began to feel scared. My car lights shone strong against a large metallic garage door, and I seen a shadow move across the bay windows of what looked like to be a living room. I received another text. "Come on in. The door's unlocked," it said. I took a deep gulp and opened my car door, the beeping startling me as I'd forgotten to turn off the engine. Pulling the keys out, I put a few between my knuckles and stepped out the seat onto the dirt, shutting the door behind me. My heart was racing and my breath getting more labored. Every instinct I had was telling me to turn around, and I looked back at my car, but I just kept moving forward. I heard every footstep I took in the dark night air, and I slowly reached out to turn the handle on the old door. Cracked paint funneling down it, and a rusty handle. Inside the garage, a large white light hung from a cord in the center, over two pickup trucks, muddle, and rusted from head to toe. The place was very cluttered, and I had to step around a narrow path until I reached a screen door just above a few steps. I kind of whispered to myself, "You can just turn around. Just go back." But my adventurous and apathetic nature took over, and I took a few steps up and through the screen door as it squealed shut. Inside the house looked fairly normal, and when I started to say "hello" into the room, "Is there anyone there?" I didn't hear anything. I said it a few more times and started to walk around into the living room I'd mentioned before. I'm downstairs, just fixing the water heater, I heard come from behind me. There's a wrench on the table. Would you mind bringing it to me? I sure as hell wasn't going to do that. I wanted adventure, but wasn't going to willingly walk into God knows what kind of trap in a completely locked off room downstairs. All of those instincts that I should have been listening to from the get-go came roaring back to my attention, and I immediately turned around and got the hell out of there. Running up to the door, I turned the handle, but it refused to open. I started panicking and turned it so hard that it broke off the door. Just then, I started to hear creaking like someone coming up the stairs, and my heart didn't race. It just stopped and calmed down. I turned around and remembered the wrench sitting on the kitchen table. I picked the heavy thing up and prepared to fight my way out if I needed to. Those giant bay windows were another way out of his house. Quick like lightning, I ran past the door to the stairs, where the voice and creaking came from, and slammed the door shut as I did. I hopped into the couch and bashed the windows with the wrench, climbing through the broken shards of glass. Climbing into my car as if there wasn't a tomorrow, I shoved the keys in the ignition and screeched out of the driveway, lying my foot into the pedal as hard as I could. After hours of berating myself on the long trip home, the sun was starting to come up and felt some twinge of relief come over me. I was so tired from the whole night of events, and after slinking into my apartment and out of my clothes, I crawled into bed wanting to forget any of this craziness had ever happened. I closed my eyes and drifted off to sleep. A few hours later, I woke up to a beeping on my computer, meaning I had a new message. I went over the computer and seen that it was from my now former, never to actually meet acquaintance.
Why did you leave? We'd have had so much fun.
I didn't reply. I just looked at the message and considered what my next move should be at this point. Another message came to the screen, which left me shaken and cold.
Your apartment looks so boring compared to what I had in store.
My webcam wasn't on. So how on earth did he know what my apartment looked like? How the heck did he even know where I was? How did he... That was the last thing Jacob told me before meeting a rather unfortunate accident. My basement was much nicer than his apartment, and I was so sad he couldn't have stayed for long. All my friends always seem to leave me. I guess I'll just need to find another. Tell me, have you ever thought about going on the dark web? I know somewhere you might like. I'm not really sure how to start this off, but let me tell you, I'm not just being paranoid as I am writing this. I am genuinely scared for my life, and I have nowhere else to go. About a week ago, I came across a forum online that was talking about the dark web. Having already known about the dark web from a few friends I knew in high school, I thought I should check it out. After a lot of searching on how to access it, I finally had everything set up. I was excited. This was all new to me, and I love finding new things. A buddy of mine suggested that I check out the hidden wiki to find a bunch of stuff that would be interesting. He told me that there are things I should be worried about whilst browsing the dark web. But most of those things I shouldn't have to worry about because they are paid services. I brushed him off, but I knew he wasn't over-exaggerating. I opened Tor and made sure I turned off all the necessary scripts, not wanting to be tracked. I was seriously into finding some leaked documents about Area 51 and Gitmo. Basically, anything that exposed the government. As I was browsing, I came across this archive with over 3,000 links on it. I decided I would start somewhere near the bottom. I clicked on quite a few and waited for them to load, while looking for some more to open. Let it be noted that not all of them had descriptions or titles. It was just the links that were shown. And in retrospect, I shouldn't have clicked on those ones. Eventually, all of the tabs loaded and I started to go through them. One of them was this kind of forum where dark web surfers could interact with each other and find out where to find some other cool websites. I was interested in that, so I left that tab open and went on to the next one. This one was just a page that said it had been seized by the government. I immediately closed that tab. That was me being paranoid. Deep inside, I knew that my IP address was hidden, and I was protected by a bunch of firewalls and security software that I had bought from my previous job. The next tab was disturbing, to say the least. Now, I won't go into detail, because I don't want to put too vivid of an image into your brain. Let's just say it was snuff. Snuff that should never, under any circumstances, be seen by anyone. I immediately closed the tab, and I was left with the same forum that I had first come across. After my run-in with that last website, I should have left. I shouldn't have kept going. But my curiosity got the best of me, and I kept going in, deeper and deeper with every click. Eventually, I came across a website that I was hoping I'd find. Government exploits. I was so relieved I wouldn't be coming across any more snuff and stuff I should never see again. For those of you who browse the dark web, you should know exactly what I'm talking about. I was casually browsing through this amazing website when I saw another tab pop open. It startled me, as I hadn't clicked anything and was just reading. I slowly hovered over the tab and considered closing it, but before I could, my curious mind decided to open the tab. The worst mistake I ever made. At first, it looked innocent enough. It was just a blank page. Kind of like the page you get when there's a 404 error page. Except, there was nothing on it. I thought nothing of it and was about to close the page when words started forming on the page without me typing.
Hello.
The first word read.
Nice to see you again.
Again? I questioned myself. Shit. I knew I should have reset my IP address after re-accessing some of the websites I did.
You don't look like I expected you to.
All of the color drained from my face. How did this person know what I looked like? I thought for sure this was some kind of bot that the webpage owner had made to fuck with some newcomers to the dark web and started laughing. I then continued to exit the page. Only, it wouldn't let me. That's when I started to panic. Not a huge panic, more like the kind of panic you get when you think you've forgotten or lost your wallet somewhere.
Trying to leave so soon, Lynn?
Now, I was full on panicking. There was no way in hell this guy could know my name. The next message he sent was bone-chilling. He sent my full name, my social security number, my address, phone number, previous employers, every little bit of personal information he could dig up on me. I was terrified.
Now that I have your attention, be a good girl and look at the camera for me.
I did, and I mentally slapped myself. How could I have forgotten to tape my webcam before going onto the dark web? I figured he had access to my microphone, so I asked him a question. "What do you want?" I asked. "Not so fast." he replied.
You look so beautiful. I'd love for you to make an appearance in one of my videos.
I shook my head and said no.
Oh, but I'm not giving you a choice,
He said. I started crying. I knew he wasn't giving me a choice, and I tried to remain emotionless to keep from getting this guy off, knowing that he was able to get something out of me. But obviously, I failed. He had all my information, and I was hopeless. I was dead either way. I was done reading what this guy had to say, and I threw my laptop outside into the rain, locked all the doors and windows, and went into my room. Buy a new laptop the next day, I told myself. Just as I started to drift off to sleep, I heard a tapping at my window. It wasn't loud enough to get me out of my half-sleeping trance. But then, there was a loud bang. I jumped up from my bed and slowly walked over to my bedroom window, and there was nothing there. I got back into my bed and started to fall asleep again. I slept through the night, waking up at 8 a.m. this morning. I've been getting phone calls all day from a blocked number. I know it's a long distance because my phone had a different ring to it, if it's a long distance caller. This is how I avoid accidentally answering the phone to telemarketers. Seeing how it was a blocked number, I figured it could have been family calling from my hometown. So I answered, and all I could hear on the other line was heavy breathing. Every hour on the hour, I've been getting phone calls like this all day. It's now 9:30 p.m. as I am writing this, and I'm absolutely scared shitless. I don't know what to do since the guy knows all of my information. And being in the panic that I was in last night, I ruined all the evidence that I had of the conversation between him and myself. The police aren't doing anything because he hasn't made any direct threats. I am genuinely scared for my life. Please, help me make this stop.